I
talk?
can totally hear you. Can you
Uh,
hear me?
uh,
Hello?
talk again. Talk.
Hello.
Yeah. Okay. Good. All right. All right. Cool. We're over here, and I believe the audience as well can hear. So we got Justin, a listener, and we got, what is it, Steven? You go by
Yes. Yes, sir.
Steven. Okay, and you're gonna tell us about sovereign citizenship and how everyone gets it wrong, or how I get it wrong, or is that correct? Is that correct? Yes.
Well, I'm here to have a debate about sovereignty.
Okay. And then, okay, so what what is it you mean by sovereignty then, if we're going to debate it?
Well, I saw your last comments on the string of comments that you pinned,
Uh-huh.
and you had two major points. Would you like to start there, or would you like me to just start in the beginning, or do you want the definition you just asked for sovereignty?
You can do the definition, because if I'm not engaging with your definition of sovereignty, then whatever I said is probably doesn't matter. But I can tell you from what I have seen, what ends up being the sort of argument that's being made, and why I think even the term sovereign citizen is a kind of performative contradiction. But we'll go with your view of it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, let's if you're going to defer to my view of it, let's start with the term sovereign citizen. This term is used by people who assign this term to the community. Most sovereign citizens that I just said it there, but most people that you would refer to as sovereign citizens understand and stand under the fact that those two mean contradictory terms. You can't have a free slave. You can't have a square circle.
Mm.
We can agree on that, right?
Yeah, so is it your view that you just reject the term citizen altogether?
Well, see, then we'd have to get into the definition of citizen. I would consider myself a citizen of heaven. I do subject myself to laws, but only to the sovereign creator.
Wait a second. Are you guys? Hold on a
So
second.
you
The chat
wrote.
is. Hold on a second. The chat is saying something about the audio. Uh, is the audio okay, you guys? I hear some people can hear it. Okay, you guys can hear it fine. Okay, if you have a problem with the audio, please refresh in the chat, or YouTube's been annoying lately. Okay. All right. So you're saying what you refer to as sovereign is that you're appealing to God's law, and that makes you free?
Do you not consider yourself free? But to
Free.
answer your questions without responding with a question, I mean, I am relatively free. There are restrictions on my freedom that
Okay.
are designated by God.
And then from your view, who is God?
I would go and default to the traditional Catholic version,
You default to it?
as opposed to
Is the Catholic triune
giving you my own.
Well, the reason I
I'm
asked you
sorry.
what default, it sounds like you're actually not starting with God. You're starting with your assumption of what sovereignty is, and then you're going down a level to whatever a default view of God is, as opposed to, well, if God is the necessary condition for all sovereignty, then that would be the start, not the default.
If that's how you want to view it, that I can accept that. I
Okay.
apologize for using the word default if we're gonna get hung up on that word.
Okay, and then from that view, from a Catholic view, then are you arguing that a Catholic who imposes laws of the land is now being inconsistent with the Catholic tradition?
Well, I'm more of the traditional Catholic mindset. I actually think you and I can agree on a lot of the basics here. I stop my I stop at about 1050 the year 1050, before the Great Schism.
Okay, hold on
So
a
my
sec. Yeah, but my
catechism.
question is less about church history and more about if the
Right.
tradition of Catholicism, like for instance, is Catholicism a patriarchy?
Absolutely.
Is Catholicism a hierarchy?
Absolutely.
Does a Catholic view then inform how you, the law of the land?
In many aspects, yes. And my viewpoint is very uh, foundational to Catholicism.
So then laws themselves making people not fully free, is that consistent with Catholicism?
You can't be fully free.
Okay, so then if you can't be fully sovereign, where's your counter to um it sounds like you actually deviate from the what we would consider the normal approach, sovereign citizen approach, where they're just saying like law is wrong, order is wrong. They're basically anarchists in a sense. So they're arguing against some sort of authority structure in the world. But if you're a Catholic, you would agree that the authority structure in the world would be the church, and that governments themselves, being informed even by the church or Christian ethics, governments would be justified under a Christian system. So are you anti-government, or you acknowledge the reality and the necessity of the state?
That's a great question, and I am definitely not anti-government. I just would like to now define government.
Okay, so you're not anti-government. So then what is sovereign? What are you referring to when you're defending sovereignty at all? It sounds just like you're just redefining sovereign to mean you're free to fulfill your Catholic obligations and duties, but you're totally fine with borders and law and jails and war, perhaps even, given that it was justified. I'm not sure what makes you even in the category of what we would normally call like a sovereign type, a sovereign citizen proponent as we understand them online. Anyway, so I'm not sure
Right.
what
And so now you, oh, sorry.
yeah, just
Oh, would you like me to
yeah,
go
yeah,
into it a
yeah,
little
yeah.
bit and give you a little bit of
Sure.
my worldview to kind of
Yeah.
build a foundation here?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you use the word normal sovereign citizen, and, or at least that phrase. And basically what I'm hearing from you is that the way most people portray sovereign citizen, I would be different from. Now, what I would say in return is that they are actually diverging from my perspective, because my perspective came way before most of these people. I started myself in 2008, and then by 2009, um, that's that's when a majority of my, at least the first round of paperwork went in. So let's go back to the idea of government. Now, in the United States, you would agree that there are public servants,
Mm-hmm.
correct?
Yeah.
That would necessitate the need for a public master. Would you correct? Would you agree with me there?
A public master?
If there are public servants, there must be a public master.
I mean, in a sense, in a colloquial sense, but I would think the wording itself is really sensationalized right now.
Okay, that's
I would
fair
just say an
enough.
authority. I would say you don't have to say the word
Right,
master.
authority.
Yeah.
Fine, fine. There's an authority.
Yeah.
Now, in the United States, we can recognize that the authority comes from the people.
So the
Correct?
public is the master.
Some, you could be a public servant and be a servant,
Mm-hmm.
or you can be a public debtor, which
Uh-huh.
is the majority of people, or you could be a public creditor, which then turns you into a
Oy.
public master.
Yeah. Okay.
So, in our government, you would recognize that we have a debt-based system, correct?
Yep.
And 2/3 of our debt is owed to ourselves, correct?
Mm, I
Approximately.
suppose. Yeah, I'm not sure what that would mean. Owed to yourselves. It's like we're born into debt, and then other countries can buy our debt, and I'm not extremely versed in the intricacies of the economics of that.
I'm not going to get into the breakdown of it. I'm just saying on the basics of it.
How do you owe
It's
yourself
public
money
knowledge.
that you never had?
And that's a great question. That's a great question, and that's why that's where the sovereignty that I'm referring to is actually going to stem from.
Yeah, but
And that's
wait,
what
wait, no,
that's why
but
I'm bringing it
I
up.
understand. But if you say the phrase, we're 2/3 in debt, and a part of that debt we owe to ourselves, but we're not the ones. It wasn't our money to lend ourselves to begin with. So how can you owe yourself money that you never had to give yourself to begin with? It's a
Now,
contradiction.
this is a question for the greatest generation that started the system. I'm not here to debate the merits of the logic behind it. I'm just claiming that this is the way it is. And so, in order to have debtors, you would have to have creditors. And the Universal Commercial Code starts out with the UCC 1. And this is where you get to define whether or not you're a creditor or you're a debtor. And so when we talk about governments and laws and rules of laws, I just want to use the laws that are there because we have the best of them. Unfortunately, the greatest generation decided that the boomers were the end all be all. And Generation X was supposed to be the last generation. So they have perverted our natural state of law. And
Natural?
but they haven't changed it.
Wait a
Oh
second.
yes, natural.
What's natural? What's the natural state of law?
Okay, perfect. So, um, let's take it back in history a little bit here before the United States, and let's go back to the English Civil War, the Parliamentary of Saints. We don't have to dive deep into it, but Charles the First ended up having his head cut off due to what's referred to as a signator regicide.
Okay.
During that time, or right after that time, they had the parliament and they decided to get Charles II back from, I think it was France, and put him back. Now, he wasn't very happy with the men that cut his father's head off.
Okay.
So he rounded a bunch of all the supporters up and took them on warships, including my ancestor William Temple, of now going to be referred to as William of Virginia. And this is 3 generations before the United States even exist.
Okay.
So
Do you know what my
when
question
William
was,
Temple-
though?
I'm sorry. What was your question?
Well, what is a natural law? Can you give an example? You're saying a natural
Yes.
violates like this natural thing. What's the natural order or law you're referring to? What's an example so we know what you're referring to when you say a natural law? This thing violates the natural order, the natural law, the natural thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. That's great. Let's then we'll jump all the way back to St. Paul, where he talks in Romans about slaves obeying their master. And so, and if we substitute the word slave for servant, because we don't really have slaves anymore, and we take the nature, again, so I guess I use nature again. That may not qualify for you, but if we take the nature of that meaning, that our public servants are supposed to obey their public masters. That's what I mean by nature. When I say nature, I mean stemming from God or God-given.
Oh, so you're saying it's actually natural and God-given that we follow masters?
Not everybody.
How does
Not
that?
everybody. God has not ordained everybody to be a sovereign.
Okay.
And only God can open up your eyes to sovereignty.
But who's God?
God, I would go. My God follows the rules of the Nicene Creed.
Your God follows
The God.
rules?
No, I meant. What I mean to say
Yeah.
is that the Nicene Creed describes my God.
Okay, and so why do you take a Catholic view then and not an Orthodox then?
That's a great question. I thought we were going to kind of skip the religion part, but we can get into that. The reason why I take the Catholic view, and again, I'm going to preface it with traditional Catholic, and I would prefer to call it a Leofric Catholic, you and I might agree, like as an Orthodox and a Catholic, on the Mass before the Great Schism. If the Orthodox and the Catholics were to unite under one Mass again, the same Mass that Leo Frick of Mercia had, and that's demonstrated in a book called the Leo Frick Missal, although that's not the same Leo Frick. But
yeah, but I
if we
wouldn't.
were to go back to that Mass, you and I would be on the exact same page, and I would be what you would call Orthodox.
Well, the thing is, I'm not accepting this. It's still ambiguous, by the way. This term natural laws. You're saying natural laws are given by God, but the example you gave was follow your master, follow the master, which I'm having trouble trying to merge that.
Slaves are,
What?
Right. I was using that as an example of something coming from God. I mean, you would agree that the idea of slaves obey your masters comes from God.
Well, in the context of slave and master, you'd have to exhaust, because there is slavery in the sense of the here and now, and then there's metaphysical slavery that's also included in our Christian view. And so using the term but using it ambiguously, I feel like there's a little bit of equivocation here, because you're using the term slave master and the relationship to slave master, and you're trying to appeal to a Christian view, but then what we're actually talking about in the here and now is like whether or not you're bound by anything here in reality, or whether or not men, from a Christian view, should deploy order such that people are actually constrained in their liberty. Now, this is why it's confusing, because most of the time when we debate sovcits or sovereign LARPers, they really hold a position of ultimate freedom and liberty to move, liberty to be yourself, liberty to this, liberty to that. And I'm not getting that from you, but I'm not sure what I'm getting from you. Are you okay with, do you take a view that it's justified to constrain liberty?
Of course we restrain liberty.
Not whether we do it.
Sovereignty is not about... I'm sorry?
I'm saying you're justified. And I'm not saying what we do. We do a lot of things. Where I'm asking from your view, are you arguing that sovereignty itself includes restricting liberty of men?
The current system of sovereignty we have does restrict, yes.
No, not the current, whether it does. I'm asking you, from your view, ought we set restrictions on behaviors?
Yes.
Okay.
We not only ought we, it's our duty to.
It's our duty to, okay.
Now we just have to define which behaviors we're restricting.
So what is it you disagree with me on then? It sounds like you also disagree with the Sovcit LARPers, that they're arguing for pure liberty and anarchism and sort of this separation from an identifiable body called the state or the country or the nation or whatever. And they're separate nodes, and they're going into the wilderness and renaming themselves whatever they want. If you and I both agree that's bunk, I'm not sure what you're actually debating me on. It sounds like you need to do a debate of who's the real sovereign citizen, Sovcit or you. So it doesn't sound like really a debate with me.
Well, okay, there's a couple parts to that. These other Sov citizens, that's very similar to in the Christian community. You're going to get Christians who say all sorts of stuff. You have Christians who have female ministers. You have Christians who have...
Those aren't Christians.
All sorts of... okay, then I would say those other people aren't sovereign citizens. They're Marxists.
That's fine.
They can call themselves sovereign citizens.
Yeah, but
so I'm just saying, let's not... let's just kind of stick to it.
Yeah, but hold on a second. There's actually
I follow the rule.
Hold on a second.
Yes,
Let me
sir.
just clarify something. There's actually a set of arguments you can make as someone, let's say, Orthodox. And if you said they're heterodox, they're not actually they're not in the true church. There's actually a variety of arguments you can take. It happens all the time. But what I'm asking you is Now I could appeal to an authority on this matter and track back through history, and there's all sorts of arguments I can take. But for a sovereign citizen, I'm not sure what you're actually going to be arguing against someone else who says, no, I'm a sovereign citizen. You know, you're saying,
Okay,
no,
so
I'm the real
me,
one. I'm the
okay,
real one.
You want to change the. I'm sorry.
What's the difference?
Okay, yes.
What's the thing you're going to be appealing to debate against another person who says they're sovereign? Because you're really not debating me at all. You're debating like the Marilyn in the chat, the chick, and all these types.
And all these other ones.
Yeah, there's a lot of
that's
like
the exact reason.
Yeah. So I
Yes, but I was hoping that you and I could actually have the debates on the merit of sovereignty. But if you would rather me debate,
no, we generally
sovereign citizenship,
we generally agree that sovereignty in the way it's presented, classical liberalism, anarchism, the Sov-Cit community, and all that shit. That's all an illusion. We generally agree on just like a general approach that whatever you think is sovereign, you know, it's not absent God. It's not a man-oriented thing. It's not oriented to just strictly nature and being free and liberated by things. So we both agree generally. There's nothing to really debate about if we generally agree that your liberty. Hold on a second. Your liberty, essentially, the thing you're liberating yourself. From my perspective, you're liberating yourself from your vices. The things that enslave you are spiritual, they're not reduced to shackles, physical shackles. And so there's a twofold thing going on of the material and the spiritual, and we're working through matter and in matter, but we're actually fighting spiritual things within ourselves and other people. If we all agree on that, I'm not sure what you're calling in and debating. It sounds like you need to go to like all the Sov-Cit channels and do like who's a real Sov-Cit, who's the real sovereign, right?
Yeah, yes, sir. And we can do a bunch of infighting and all of that too. That's fine. But I would like to debate you on your 2 points that you put in your comments. Then, if we're going to switch
Which
it up.
point?
You say that your first question is why don't we go to the woods, and your second point was I forget what it was now, but we can start there. I think you have two major.
What do you mean
you have
we?
two major arguments.
I didn't say why.
And then why am I not really a sovereign?
Hold on,
Those are your two major points.
No. I didn't say why don't we go to the woods. I have reasons why I don't go to the woods. Yeah.
Yes, we sovereigns. Why don't we sovereigns?
Yeah, the Sov-Cit people who are claiming.
Yes.
We've already figured this out, though.
Yes,
Hold on, dude. We've already figured. Dude, stop. We've already figured out that in the comments, I'm referring to the people who think they can separate themselves from society and make a claim that they're not a part of the ordered system, yet they rely on the ordered system as a performative contradiction. If you're not that, I'm not talking to you.
I am in that camp.
You're what?
I just would like to.
What? You're in a contradiction.
I would like to get to the crux of the debate.
You just contradicted yourself. I asked you straight out of the gates, do you agree with governing society and making an ordered law? You said yes. The people I'm talking to, the other Sov-Cit, they're saying, no, this is illegitimate. And I ask them, okay, go to the woods, form your own system, break free of this current system. And they go, no. They say no.
Right. May I respond to this point?
Yeah.
For them?
For them?
Thank you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, for them, on their behalf.
Okay.
Okay. Now, let's start with the land. So you want us to go into the woods. Which woods would you prefer us to go into?
You can do one performative contradiction and buy yourself some woods.
Okay, so you do believe in private property.
I believe that, I believe if in a system of governance that you can temporarily acquire land that you can call yours until things change.
Now, is this land, does it belong to you or does it belong to the state?
I don't think you can.
Does it belong
I don't think
to...
you can really own anything.
Fair enough. Now, if I were to be living on a parcel of land that I owned the land patent to, and I owned my property outright, Would Jimbob, you, have a problem with me being sovereign
Well, I would just
on
reject
that
that you're
land?
sovereign. I would just say, yes, I would have a problem if you bought land. Let's say a bunch of libertarian degenerates bought land and they got into all sorts of weird shit and they declared, let's say, the age of consent didn't exist anymore because there's no more law and they crafted their own. If you guys turn into the Amalekites, I would have no problem nuking you all. I feel like you just, that's it. Is that it? Yeah, there's no such, I reject that there's any such condition called sovereign. You're always subject to either the laws of God, which kings would govern by or governments would govern by, or godless governments. You're going to still be subject to their force. So when you ask, okay, can I buy a bunch of land? Will you allow me to be sovereign? Well, I would say you're already in one contradiction if you bought the land. That would require legality, which would necessitate a government. So you're not actually truly sovereign if you can buy land. You're actually subject to the forces that defend property rights and enforce the violation of those rights. So, but second, no, I don't grant that anybody on their land can be truly sovereign, because if they start doing disgusting shit, I'm totally fine with the government coming in and completely taking everything they have. Now, I don't know if he's still there or we just can't hear him. Maybe his mic shut off. But so from that view, I don't think there's maybe there's no such thing as sovereign from his view either. You're always subject.
I can't hear him responding. He might be having tech issues.
Yeah, that's fine. Christ is king. He thinks he's dead. Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
Maybe the Fed's got him.
I'm not sure where else to go with that. It seems like we kind of agree in some sense, but I'm not sure what he's presenting as, quote, sovereign, if there's no such thing really.
I'm back here.
Okay.
Where
did we cut off? Did you hear what I said?
I heard some of it. It was
Okay.
in and out. And you were talking about the liberals in the woods.
Yeah, you said if you bought your own land, which I
Right.
said, well, if you bought land, you'd be
Yes.
appealing to legality, which would necessitate some body of governance, which wouldn't be truly sovereign, because you'd have to buy land through this methodology that was governed by a police.
Yes.
But even if I granted you one phase called buying something, you said, once I have my parcel and we have our people, would you then be okay with us being sovereign? And I said, not really. If you were doing things that ultimately violated a Christian view, there might be a threshold at which I would just come in and justify taking it over and stopping all that nonsense. Similar to biblical
And
times.
that I would agree. I would agree with you on that. But in our current system, in the current way that we have the paperwork, there is a process. And you asked me earlier about why I'm a Catholic. And the reason why I'm a Catholic is because they have the apostolic succession and the authority from Rome. And so the first thing I had to do in this process was defeat the 12 presumptions. And there's a federal judge in the court system that you would say is legitimate, named Dale Chase, who actually witnessed this and wrote about it in a book called Lawfully Yours. He has a subsection, and I believe it's in section 3 of this book. And he goes into the 12 presumptions pretty well. Now, obviously, I had to go through those too, and I actually did file all of those with the Holy See, and wrote Pope Francis at the time. Now, of course, just being one person, it just goes to the Holy See and sits there. But under the rules and laws of the Roman, and Catholic ways, and the rules and laws that you participate in now, everything I did within the paperwork.
Yeah, so what
make
differentiates your life and everything
So
else?
I like
Hold on a second. What differentiates you currently right now in all of the ways you participate in reality, what differs between you and someone who didn't go through that paperwork process?
Well, they would be, and then still claim to be a sovereign citizen.
No, they just didn't claim anything. They're just a person.
Just a person.
Yeah.
They don't even claim their sovereignty out loud.
No, what's the difference between you and them in regards to operating in the current paradigm of like the US and, you know, what you're required for flying or driving a car or getting a gun or any of these things? What's different now that you've filed the paperwork with Rome?
And not just Rome, it's the United States as well.
Yeah, what's
I'm just
different?
saying that in order to do the United States one, you had to go to the original jurisdiction. What's different between me and somebody else?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, we both put our pants on one leg at a time, and we both go to the bathroom and eat. So a lot of our reality is going to be very
different?
Similar. Right. I'm getting.
You're telling me what's the same. I didn't ask what's the same. I asked what's different.
I agree. What's different? Well, for one, the paperwork is different.
The paperwork
the
is
laws. Well, would you not agree that the paperwork is different?
No, the thing that you did is the paperwork. I'm asking what's the difference that the paperwork causes, and you say the paperwork.
Okay, I see what you're asking me now. You would like an example of how my interactions would be different than somebody else's with the world. Okay, for one, I would like let's say like at a traffic, like you mentioned movement. I think that's what you're getting on. Like my freedom to travel, you like to laugh at.
Well, no one has a freedom to travel. That is worth laughing at for sure. Especially if you believe in property and sovereignty, because someone can own all the land and you don't have a freedom to travel, and you'd give them the sovereignty and the right to own all the land. If they could actually pay for it and buy it, then they can own all the land. So,
right. The crux of my argument is that I am the creditor that built all these things. You guys borrowed money.
Well, no, hold on. Hold on. Stop it. We're not talking about all that. We're talking about what's different. So now you said you got pulled over, right? So here I'm the cop. Hey, Steven, can I see your license and registration? What's different?
Well, are you asking practically?
Yeah, because in reality, what's different?
In reality, what's different is that I would stand up for my sovereignty and you would not.
What? No, that's in your head. You're basically a gender theorist right now. It's like you're saying I identify as freer than you and I'm doing that. Actually, I get pulled over, you get pulled over. Okay?
Yes.
Same cop.
I'll tell you what.
What's different? You just said, well, I would stand up. No, you would just say shit. But the outcomes are all the same, dude.
Your outcome for compliance to your servant would be the same as my outcome for my discompliance on my servant.
Well, no. Let's say we both reject it, but I just reject it for different reasons, right? Let's say I just didn't file any of the paperwork with Rome, but I'm in defiant of the authority. You can't tell me. You're basically LARPing. You're doing Dungeons and Dragons sovereignty. You basically signed up to buy your own star in the universe. And you're like, look, the paperwork came in. I got my own star named after me. It's out there. And I go, what's different about reality? And the answer is nothing, because you get pulled over for the same laws and violations as I would if the cop is consistent.
Right.
You get charged.
I would have diplomatic immunity.
Immunity? You'd have immunity how? You're immune to traffic speeding tickets because you signed up with Rome? This is like getting your own like Trump pillow. You know, it's like, I got the Trump pillow, I signed up for it. You're like, what's different? You're like, I sleep better at night. Dude, you're just as delusional as the Sov sits. You think anything has changed in the world. Literally, you're LARPing. You bought an imaginary costume called Liberty. Someone sold you on a process of signing over some documents, and you think because you signed them over, you're in a different position as anyone else. You're not. You know, some people have Mormon face. You have Sovsit face. And there's no difference. The cop still goes, give me your license. Give me this. Okay, you were speeding. This is a violation. You can challenge the court. You can do this. You can do that. Here's what you're liberated to do. Here's what you're not. If you don't show up to court, the fine goes up, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So you're not free of any of this, dude. I can't believe all that much talking, and literally all you get is an imaginary star, a document that they sent to you. This is an official. You're officially a sovereign citizen. Cool. Can I show this to the cop and get out of jail? No.
Okay, well, for one, we have a legal system, and it's their responsibility to prove their statutory claims.
That's irrelevant to whether or not your document changes the reality of anything, and it doesn't.
Well, if the document does change the reality.
Tell me how your document changes your reality versus me not having the document in the same situation.
Ultimately, at the end of my process, I win the process.
No, that's gibberish. That doesn't tell me anything. Tell me how you're having a document signed by Rome, right? They just totally scammed you, by the way. They're like, "Hey, you're free. Sign this. We'll send you home a stamped thing and approval, right?" And you get it in the mail.
I understand, Jimbob, that you don't believe in the authority of the Catholic Church.
No,
that's fine.
No, that's not what's in question.
I just think
dude, you're dodging right now.
I just think it's
dodging and obfuscating, red herring, dodging, obfuscating.
No, sir.
The reality is, Stephen, is that I asked you a very direct question. If we both get in the scenario, where we violate a law, how is your outcome any different?
In your scenario, this is a statute. I'd like to at least
How is your reality different with your special stamped approval of sovereignty?
My reality is different.
Do you have to pay taxes?
God sees me.
Your reality is different because God sees you. So you paid Rome for a tramp stamp thing so that God can see you different, but that required Rome to give you a letter back that you paid for that's stamped Rome to prove. Now you know God treats you differently and sees you different because of a document?
That's exactly how baptism works.
No, it's not the document that makes you different. It's the baptism. That's the sacrament.
It wasn't the document. The document is the claim. There's a process.
So you were baptized in Rome, and now you're sovereign?
The rule, what is bound, and what is loose is loose.
That's beautiful poetry. You should write some poetry.
It's in the Bible. It's not poetry.
The question is how your reality changes. And your only thing you pointed to is all of the laws stay the same. All of the violations are the same. The statutes are the same. But the difference is you having the document in your glove compartment. God sees you differently during the traffic violation.
He does. He sees you differently. That is one thing.
How do you know how God sees anybody? How do you know how God sees anybody?
I guess I could ask you the same
question. That would be dodging if you did that.
Okay. But God sees people differently.
Based on whether or not you signed up for I'm a sovereign citizen from Rome document.
Whether or not you hold God's truth.
And God's truth needs to be signed by Rome. And what did they do a stamp? Did they give you stickers at least when they sent it back to you?
Something similar.
Stickers?
Stamps are involved.
for the back of your car? I bet they gave you a sticker in the back of your car. Did they? Just say it. They did.
Kind of.
They gave you a bumper sticker, bro.
That's so hilarious. Now who's obfuscating?
Did they give you a bumper sticker, yes or no?
No, sir.
Did they give you a sticker?
I wish they gave me a sticker, but they're stamps, sir.
They gave you a stamp, and the stamp said God sees you differently now, right?
Absolutely.
But you still have to pay your fine and go to court to challenge it, right?
Actually, I don't pay my fine.
Oh,
I can accept my fine for value.
What?
I'm a creditor. I'm a creditor.
Wait, what
I'm a
happens?
third party secured.
What happens?
Jimbob, you owe me money.
I owe you
are a
money for
debtor.
you speeding?
Yes.
Interesting.
Yes.
So how does that
Because
work?
you-
You get hold
because
on.
you are a-
Hold on. Without
I'll
the
tell you
poetry.
how this works.
No,
you built the roads.
no, just hold on a second. Mechanically, not theoretically. Don't do theoretical on me. Mechanically, you get pulled over for a speeding violation. Let's say it's $250. Do you pay that fine or not? Now, he came in thinking, so you thought maybe he's not as wild or crazy as the sovereign citizens that we usually engage with. It's actually worse. Pure delusion. Pure delusion. He's just going to try to obfuscate this and go into a theoretical way in which we're all paying for him. But no, the reality is he gets pulled over, the same guy who pulls us over for the same violation, with any level of consistency from the state. They give you a ticket, and then they police that you pay the ticket, okay? Now, the question is, does he pay the ticket or not? Now, under his delusional view, he sends them a screenshot of the thing he paid for in Rome, and they go, well, shit, I wish I had known whether he bought this thing from Rome. You know what? Jimbob's going to pay it.
Well, Jimbob, you're a debtor.
Dude, that doesn't...
I'm a
you
creditor.
you categorizing me as anything is irrelevant to this very strict question that you're refusing to answer.
I'm not
when
the
you,
one who
dude,
categorizes
when
you. The
when
government's the one who
look,
categorizes
when
you.
you get pulled over for speeding, and let's say the fine is $250, do you pay that or
Yes.
not?
I accept it for value. I take.
I
a
didn't
red pen
ask
and a
how you
blue pen,
see
and
it.
I demonstrate, and I ask them to present to me the original charging instrument.
Do you?
I take that charging instrument.
Do you pay
I
for it?
create money.
Do you create money?
What
Do
your
you pay-
definition of
Look,
pay
dude,
is
do-
a debt-based system.
do you-
I do not use a debt to pay it.
Do you
I
pay the
offset
fine?
it. I offset the fine gets paid
By
from
who?
The money you owe me.
No.
The money
Who?
you owe
No.
me.
Who sends in the check to pay for it?
I write a bill of lading.
You're so
He
full of shit. All
presents
right.
me.
All
The
right,
judge,
dude,
the
get it.
judge
It's
hands
done.
us
It's-
me.
it's
The
toast.
judge
You're-
hands me.
You are a LARPing delusional kid. You're a child who literally has to reframe reality to fit your insane view that you're the one not paying.
Thank you. I appreciate the compliments. Now, if we can go to the merit of the issue.
There's no merit to anything
I'm
you're
not
saying.
the one reframing reality.
Yes,
You're
it is.
the one reframing
No, you're
reality.
reframing
the
reality.
paperwork exists. You're the one with the boomer.
Is it your bank
you
account?
think like a boomer. Sorry?
Is it your bank account that pays the bill?
Yes, it is my
And
account.
and
It's
how
my
do you get
third-party
paid? What's your job?
creditor
What's
account.
your job, if you don't mind me asking? Do you work for labor in exchange for money? Now, coincidentally, his mic keeps cutting out, but here's what I'm getting to. If there's anything in his bank
It's
account,
not.
okay. Do you
I'm
offer labor or
I'm-
skill
it's
or
not-
service in exchange for money? It's a yes or no question.
Under the correct contracts. of
Oh, under
course.
the correct contracts, I do. So the answer is yes. So whatever it is your skill or labor is, and you trade that for money, and that money goes into your bank account, you now have something that's equal, that you've accepted as equal to your labor in your bank account. Now, what's happening when you get pulled over is that your sweat and labor that's now represented as money, monetary bills, is now going to the court system or wherever it goes, in exchange, right, to cancel out your violation of speeding. Let's say it's $250. You,
It's
sir,
very similar to this, Jimbob. May I please just interject right here?
Yeah.
And correct where you're about to go off.
he
You're
pays the fine. He
absolutely
calls it
right.
something else. That's right. Yeah.
You're about to go. We're in agreement all the way up to that sentence.
What sentence?
Oh, when I get that $250
No, wait, no.
fine,
What sentence?
I have two options. I can pay with the debt bills that that have been handed to me for the sweat equity,
Uh-huh.
or I can accept
It's
it
not
for
sweat
value
equity.
and use the bank account that the boomers opened up in my name.
That's not sweat
It
equity.
was opened up before. You just said that it was an exchange for sweat
That's
equity.
not. No, I didn't say equity. I said you sweat, and you labored in exchange for monetary notes. And I asked you, how do you pay for the fine, dude? And you said, well, I'm now going to reframe what I'm actually doing.
Value. I said accept it for
thing. This is a cloud machine. And I'm like, isn't it a roller coaster? And you're like, no,
that's my argument.
It's a cloud machine.
Is this
I'm in a cloud, and this is a cloud machine, Jimbob. It's
to steel man my argument so we can actually address the merits.
You don't have an argument. You're using language to rephrase logistical things. So look, you're saying I accept value.
Used the legal dictionary.
Yes,
I accept that.
You have Blackstone's dictionary, whatever, Black Book dictionary. You got that cracked open while you're doing this stuff.
What dictionary do you use?
It doesn't matter, dude. I don't care. I'm talking about reality.
Does matter,
no,
you're claiming that I'm using semantics.
Yeah, you are.
That's exactly what the boomer brains do.
No, that's a fallacy.
Doing.
You're using fallacies right now. Calling boomer.
You're the one. Yeah, I agree. It's a fallacy.
Okay,
but
cool.
You're the one who's in the fallacy.
Look, Steven. Let's make this really simple. Okay. What's physically happening that's different when I pay a bill for a fine and you pay the same bill? What's physically different by you calling it I accept the value?
The physical difference consists of material components known as paper and pens. And when I give my red and blue discharge, I am not using debt to pay debt. I'm accepting the value of the debt.
Oh,
so
no, hold on. So physically what's happening is nothing. What's happening is you're choosing a different way to pay for the fine.
Yes, through the system.
Can I do that with
only sovereigns can use this system?
Hold on. Can I do that without the paid for certificate from Rome?
No.
I can't. So
you have to break all 12 presumptions of jurisdiction first. Okay. Then you have to go through the UCC.
So you're doing extra steps. Okay, I get it. I see what's happening now. I see what's happening now. What you're doing is you're taking extra steps and doing extra work and spending extra time of your own life that adds up over time to pay a bill in a different way just so you can have the assumption that you're more free than someone else and yet the same bill gets paid. That's what's happening.
Yes, the same thing happens.
You're a fool.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
That's like me paying. That's like me going to Chuck E. Cheese and they were like, "Can you debit your card for all the kids, at Chuck E. Cheese?" And I'm like, "But sir, I prefer to pay for the tickets to Chuck E. Cheese in a way that requires 3 extra weeks and a lot of unnecessary practices. Why? Because have you seen this thing from Rome? I have a stamp that says I can pay for things in a very different, unpractical way. L for fool.
For Rome is showing.
Hatred for Rome? No, dude, that's a fallacy.
Like because you're using an ad hominem fallacy.
I did not. I described exactly what you're doing in Chuck E. Cheese language. You're paying.
The difference is that Chuck E. Cheese policies don't have a way to do that. If they had a way to do that, then it would be a perfectly valid means of operation.
Why should anyone do it that way? Why should
Jimbob? I did not make any of this up.
Why should Stephen? Why should anyone?
Talk about the word
Stephen,
I've answered
focus.
Several of your questions.
Hey, Stephen, why should anyone do it that way?
Because it's the right way to
do
things.
Why should they do it that way?
That's questions very much.
What am I missing out on?
It's the correct.
Mode. What am I missing out?
You're missing out,
dude. Let me ask the question. Let me ask a question to you. In reality, me paying a fine, a ticket for speeding, that's $250. That's the same exact price as you're going to pay. What do you gain by paying it your way that I don't gain paying it my way? Because I can actually argue I gain time, which is hold on a second. No, because you're not listening to me ask the question. I'm telling you I gain time by paying it my way. Now, what do you gain that I can't gain?
Instead of paying, when you pay it, you pay with debt. When I pay it, what I gain is I alleviate the debt. So if we are $40 trillion in debt and I accept for value $250, then we collectively now don't owe $250. That has been accepted.
What do I gain?
What do you mean, what do you gain?
What do I gain by doing it your way? Me. What do I gain from doing it your way?
Well, if you did it my way, you would convert to Catholicism and you would save your soul.
What? No, that has nothing to do with anything. You're saying that your own soteriology is now based on how you pay a fucking fine for speeding? Are you insane?
If you participate in a system,
if I pay my fine for speeding,
and
then I'm saved?
Sir, you interrupted. Go ahead.
You just said my soteriology would change in that if I paid my speeding bill the way you do it, then I'm saved.
It's not about
You're
paying
fucking
it this way. It's
insane,
about standing up
dude.
to fraud. It's about standing up to fraud. You would stand up to fraud.
Fraud.
Do you not think that there's a moral duty to stand up to fraud?
You mean like indulgences?
What do you mean like an indulgence?
So, look, I asked you, what do I gain? And the only thing you could say that's different is some unsubstantiated soteriological claim about my soul being saved by paying a fine your way instead of my way.
No, that's going to Rome. That's going to Rome. Again, we're speaking past each other. So why don't we take it back?
What would I gain?
Can I reframe? What?
Answer my question. What do I gain?
I have answered.
No, you want to change your answer now because it was embarrassing. What do I gain by paying my bill your way instead of just writing them a check?
You gain your sovereignty.
That is meaningless. My life is still the same. You're not telling me anything in reality that's different. What's different?
That's the crux of the debate.
What's different about my reality?
Well, what's different? Just so that way I can get into answering the question the way you want, like you're looking for. I'm doing my best to answer your question.
What is physically, materially different about me paying one way or the other?
What's physically, materially different between you and an atheist?
What?
What is physically, materially different between you and an atheist?
Nothing. We both have to pay for fines. What's your point? You're making a bigger claim about sovereignty. I'm asking what's different, right? You're actually proving my point for me. There's nothing different between me and an atheist in regards to following the law and paying for violations and paying for speeding tickets and the way the law is applied, right? Ideally, if it's applied uniformly. That actually defeats your entire argument because I asked you, well, what's different about my scenario and your scenario? And you basically don't have an answer.
Well, I have the same answer you do about what's physically different between you and an atheist.
Nothing?
It's the same answer.
So nothing. So
nothing.
You admit that nothing. So that's all I needed to do, dude.
No physical.
So
yes.
there's no difference.
If it takes 20 minutes to get through that one sentence, that's fine.
So great. So you just conceded the argument that there's nothing.
What was the difference? No, you said that. Yeah, first you said what's the difference.
So there's no difference.
You said what physical.
Yeah,
and then you said no.
Okay, cool.
Difference.
So there's nothing.
There is a difference.
Okay, cool. If it's
there's
not
a difference between you and an atheist, and there's a difference between me and you and sovereignty.
Stephen, if you agree that there's nothing different between the way. Listen, if we agree there's no physical difference in reality, practical, actual, logistical, there's no difference between me paying it my way and you paying it your way. I would actually argue there is something different between me and you, is that I actually save more time than you. Now, in addition to gaining time, if you're arguing that there's virtually no difference between the way I pay for the speeding ticket and you pay for the speeding ticket, there's no effect on our lives that's different. Dude,
Dude, no, you switched it, man.
Logistically,
You
materially.
said physical, and then you switched it
Okay.
from physical to no difference.
Okay, if you
physical?
disagree with the virtual aspect, you're gonna have to give me something that's extra material, that's convincing, that would make the difference for me paying a fine your way and not my way. So what is that?
My way doesn't use usury. My way
yes, it does.
No, it does not.
Yes, it does, dude.
No, it doesn't.
Of course it does.
Because I don't pay debts. I don't pay a debt with a debt. I pay a debt with a credit.
Oh, really?
You're paying debt with debt.
Cool.
I'm paying debt with credit.
Right. And your entire reality, right, that you operate in is usury based. But you're saying, well, at least I don't pay my bills using usury. That's it. That's the gain. You when you have a speeding ticket that's $250, your whole argument is that I'm not currently paying with usury, yet the entirety of your existence is based on usury.
Is usury a mortal sin?
We're not going to get it. I'm not going to talk the difference between us making sins and stuff. I'm opposed.
Yes.
I am opposed to usury. That's a different question of whether or not you're actually combating usury.
Sovereignty is the way out of usury. The sovereign economics model is the way out of usury.
No,
and it's the only way out of usury.
Dude,
what way out of usury do you suggest?
You're so naive, it's insane, dude. You're like a board game. You're like, you wrote yourself a board game and you're playing it all alone. Literally all of the structures that you operate, that you're getting paid. Dude, stop for a second. Everything you do, dude, stop.
Why can I not respond?
Stop it. Everything you do, all the food you buy is all basically based on some type of usury. The banking system, the way you hold money, the way you exchange money, the way you use transportation, the way everything you do in this world, right? I'm not saying it's good that it's that way, but it is that way.
It is that way.
And because it's
agree with you.
but the thing, dude, you're not doing your part. Oh my God, this is such a piety signal bullshit, dude.
No,
such piety signaling.
Power to not do it.
It's all piety signaling.
You give up, and I'm the one doing it correctly.
No, dude, you're basically
doing it to the best of my. Yes,
dude. It's such low tier piety signaling to think that because you got fined $250 for speeding, you're fighting the debt system, right? In any meaningful way by doing this operation. This is such. I mean, it's so gay. You're wearing a costume. You're wearing a sovereign citizen costume. For a moment, you pay a fine. That's all you're doing.
But it's more than a fine. This is an entire way of life.
Oh, it's a way of life. Yeah, right, dude.
When you say I'm LARPing, I've been doing this before my prefrontal cortex.
There's no difference. You admitted that there's no difference in logistics in actuality.
Physical.
So, no. Hold on.
I said that it's the same difference between you and an atheist.
Dude, if there's no difference actually, then you have no argument to actualizing it.
But there is an actual
difference. There isn't. You haven't given me one.
I just gave you the
What's the actual?
Material?
Yeah, actual.
When you say actual?
What's the concrete difference between me paying my bill my way and you paying it your way? What's the actual difference?
When you pay it your way, you are telling the government that you're okay with the system that we have. When I pay my way, the government has to put me on the list and mark out how many people are resisting. They don't like that number going up too high. So for every person that signs
you mean
up
to
and
17?
does it my way,
you mean to 17?
You are telling the government. I'm sorry?
To 17? The number is, where's too high? Is it 20?
They tried to keep it under 7%.
What percent of people are paying fines your way?
If sovereignty
7%
of the population, our way will be the correct way, and it will be recognized. They have been doing everything they can to keep a 7% down. That's the number. That's the magic number that they have.
So what's the money that you're paying then? How's that represented?
Money is a great question.
Is that fiat? Is it? Dude, I didn't ask you to go on a diatribe of what you think money is. When I asked you when you pay a different way, It's still a form of value. Now, is it fiat or not?
It's not fiat, no.
What is the value then? Where is that value located then?
Where's the
money
account
come
located?
from? Yeah, where's the account of the money you're paying for the ticket your way?
Okay, the account is in the Universal Commercial Code. It's a federal account, and I can give you the numbers to my personal one.
So you have a federal account.
Yes.
And you're saying the federal account that stores money is not the same money as that we're using? It's all fiat money, dude.
No, it's the debt. I use the credit. I am a secured party creditor.
So wait, you're a creditor but against usury?
I am eliminating the debt. You owe the debt to somebody. We owe the debt to ourselves. I am that self that you owe the debt to.
Dude, you are. This is like
every time I pay it, we reduce.
This is monetary. And that's all you're doing. Nothing's actually happening because all you're doing is paying a fine in a different way. But guess what?
No, the debt goes. Jimbob, the debt goes down. When you pay the fine, the debt goes up. When I pay the fine, the debt goes down.
Oh, really? It goes down.
Yes, because I have.
So what is it at?
For value,
what is it at? What trillion is it at?
That's why we need 7%, and that's why our current system is going to implode on itself. This boomer brain attitude that you keep bringing is not going to. Oh, right. What is your solution? Wait, what's your solution?
I don't have a solution. I don't have a delusional solution, right?
Wait, Steven does have a solution.
No, he doesn't.
Why would Jimbob stand it?
No, he doesn't have a solution. No, you're delusional.
Yes, he does.
No, you're delusional. You think
How can I be delusional when the paperwork is...
Because you think that paying a fine to the government for a ticket, a speeding ticket, you think because you're paying it out of a different system, a different banking system, you think that you're actually lowering credit in any meaningful way. That's what you think. You think you're fighting something, right? You're not fighting anything because the entirety of the system that you rely on, for the most part, is still usury-based, debt-based. So everything else you do in life, everything, that's like saying, I don't pay for my Skittles the same way you do at the movie theater. That's all you're saying. Like, when I go to the movies, Jimbob, you don't understand. You saw the same stupid movie as I did, but I paid for my popcorn in a different way. It's like, and I go, what's actually materially different? And you say nothing, but now you're saying what's materially different is that I'm lowering the debt. You are delusional. That if you think you're lowering the debt in any meaningful way, that more money isn't being borrowed astronomically more than what the fucking candy bar you just bought or the $250 fine for speeding. You think you're working against the system? No. All they do is spend more money into existence to completely trump your little candy bar you bought. Whatever weird self-flat, you're like, it's so masturbatory, by the way. It's like, the idea that you think you're doing something is so insane.
Okay, can we start
Jimbob
with the
and his tiny box.
Can we take a step back?
Did you forget about me? Anyway, what stops a forceful government or body from cancelling all of what Steven thinks he's accomplished?
Sure, you can reframe it any way you want, but according...
Perfect. Okay, so let's start with my 5th great-grandfather, Jesse Temple. Jesse Temple fought in both battles of Charleston under Commander Singleton.
God, you're a fucking narcissist, bro.
Oh, so quickly.
I don't give a shit about your granddaddy, dude.
My 5th great-grandfather.
Don't tell me a story.
Oh, you don't care about the founding fathers?
Don't tell me a story.
Before the Constitution existed.
Don't tell me a story. I know history. It doesn't matter if you're adding your grandpa or not, dude. Get to the point, folder boy.
Do you have...
No one gives a shit about the lore.
Do you have a paternal grandfather?
No one cares.
No wonder you don't understand.
No one gives a shit about your granddaddy, dude, that you still wear his underwear around the house pretending you're free, okay? Get to the point.
Are we not free? You don't think we're free?
No.
We live in the freest country that there can
No,
be.
we don't. It's not free.
Okay, so what country is more free? What country is more free?
You're
What country could
assuming
you move to
freedom
that's
is
more-
good, dude.
We can restrict evil.
What?
We've already gotten past that.
What
But
are you
anyways,
talking
didn't know what we-
about?
Obviously, we can restrict evil.
What are you saying? You can restrict evil.
We don't have the
You
right
can't have
to
a country if
freedom.
it's free. There's no such thing.
Jesse Temple,
Jesse Temple, Grandpa, Grandpa, back to Grandpa. What are you?
Jesse
What are you
Temple.
on his lap right
And
now?
you can mock the founding fathers all you want.
Founding
but they're the
fathers were
ones who set
wrong,
this
bro.
up. I'm sorry, the founding fathers were wrong. Is that what you said?
Yeah, their philosophy is flawed, dude. What are you talking about?
Okay. Now I see it. Okay, I'll walk that back a little bit. Now let's go to William Temple, his grandfather. Then he filed for the original land patent under King Charles II and was granted that. And then Jesse Temple.
I don't care about your fucking story, dude. Shut your mouth, dude. Get to an argument. What are you talking about? Daddy Temple, and then Daddy Temple came by, and then Daddy did this.
There are men. All right, there's the argument is that this land is.
What are you doing?
This is not.
Daddy, I have Daddy's pants in my drawers. I have pictures of Daddy with a shotgun. What are you saying?
I understand that. What I'm saying is
Daddy,
that this land and the idea of sovereignty.
Sing it. This land is our land. This land is yours. Just do it. Just sing the song already. This land is our land. This land is my land. From the Daddy Temple to the New York. Just do it.
There we go.
Yeah.
Jesse Temple.
Yeah.
Jesse Temple stabbed
He
them
was
alive.
gay. Your
He
grandfather
absolutely
was
did.
gay.
Having 12 children.
He was still gay, though.
Yeah, good one.
Look,
Yeah.
what does your grandpa have to do with anything?
It has to do with the idea of sovereignty.
That doesn't tell me anything.
Was Jesse Temple sovereign before the Revolutionary War?
No one is sovereign. They're always at the potential will of other men.
Absolutely. And the will of the men that run this country have the paperwork and the forms to file every single thing I've talked about. It has to exist in order for the system to exist.
That says
it has
nothing.
to be creditor if you're going to have a debtor.
You just contradicted yourself. Look, dude, even if you got rid of the entire financial system and all of its usury, you still wouldn't have sovereignty the way you're defining it.
I'm defining sovereignty by the means and modes of the paperwork presented to us.
I just told you
without our current government.
Dude, are you dense?
Our government
I just told you if you got rid of the government and the paperwork and everything you are pointing.
I don't want to get rid of the government. And the
dude,
paperwork.
Steven, listen to me. I'll prove it. If we got rid of the government and all the usury and all the way in which we pay for things currently, and it was just men in the woods, in the wilderness with bungalows and hunting rifles.
Yes, Jesse Temple was in this exact
Dude, you're
same
not
scenario.
listening. You are obsessed with your granddaddy, dude. It's sick. Listen to what I'm saying. You can't even listen to what another man is saying without dreaming about your pawpaw.
Continue.
You still dreaming of pawpaw? You get rid of the government and all the forms and all the paperwork and all the usury notes and all the banking and all of it, okay? Whatever you're referring to as sovereignty still doesn't exist.
That's an interesting perspective.
Tell me how it's
wrong. What would I have to demonstrate to tell you that it does exist?
Tell me what's sovereignty once you get rid of all of these other things. Tell me what it is.
Sovereignty is your communion with God.
And I can't do that if I have if the current system is using usury and stuff. Good job, blasphemer. You're a blasphemer, dude. You're a legalist, dude. You're full legalism. You should just become a Jew, bro. Da 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 da. Hey, hey, hey.
You cannot have communion with God unless it's done through a legal system. It's literally, what are you saying, bro?
I didn't say that. You haven't steeled me in my argument.
You just said, what is sovereignty? I asked you, what's sovereignty absent all of the usury and all of the banking systems and all the notes? And you said sovereignty is communion. You said sovereignty is communion with God. And by your own argument, and the entailment is that you can't have true communion with God unless you have the proper exchange of monetary notes, bro.
Sovereignty is defined by my rabbi.
You have to do it a certain way or you cannot connect with God. You have to pay your tickets not the usual way. You have to pay this other way through Rome, then you are communion with God. It is a sacrament to pay your bills through this other way and not this other way.
Dude, you're a legalist.
Circumcision was the first sovereign citizens. It's the payment towards God.
Dude, you're a legalist, dude. Your entire
We're
philosophy.
Still on YouTube.
Still on YouTube, yeah.
I use the laws that have been written. If we would like to talk about jurisdiction, we can talk about jurisdiction.
No, you're trying now to escape the shit you just stepped in, because when I ask you what's sovereignty absent all of these things that exist. So before all of these other things, temple exists, right? Daddy, Papa exists, and he was running around, he was sovereign, right? My grandpa was sovereign, I want to be like him. Okay. He preceded all of these terrible things, all these systems that you find terrible, right? We have to do away with these systems. We have to work against them, okay? I'm granting you that there was a time in which they didn't exist, and there might be a time where they won't exist in the future. But when I ask you, well, what's sovereignty? And it ultimately you reduce it to some type of communion with God, which is like a sacrament, is a sacramental sovereignty. It would have to be the case that you could have communion with God without any of these systems. You wouldn't need the specific way in which you pay a bill to have true sovereignty or communion with God, but your claim is that actually that's necessary.
Is that my claim?
Yeah, and the entailment of what you said is that's the entailment.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, well then we can break that down. Obviously there are different relationships with God, and God chooses what he wants to do with them. We're all given our cross to bear, and sovereignty is not for everybody. God loves everybody as much as God loves everybody.
That's just beautiful. Was Temple also a poet? What are you writing Hallmark cards in the Christian section?
Sovereignty isn't for everybody, and only God can open up your mind to it.
Wow, bro. That's it? That's all you got? After an hour and a half or something crazy? That's all you got?
Like,
sovereignty isn't... Okay, great, cool. Why should I pay my bills your way? Hold on, Steven. Why should I pay my bills your way instead of my way? And guess what? Sovereignty isn't for everyone. So I guess I'm going to take the approach that sovereignty isn't for everyone.
That's perfectly valid.
Yeah, that's a contradiction from your argument, dude. You just bodied yourself, man.
As long as you don't interfere with my ability to be sovereign.
What do you mean, why not?
Have a problem.
What do you mean? How could I interfere? How could I possibly, dude, how can I possibly interfere with your communion with God? Ruh-roh. Materialism, not materialism. Physical, not physical. You're all over the place, dude. You don't even know what you're arguing.
Well, do you say you don't know what I'm arguing?
If you held before in this argument that sovereignty isn't reduced to mechanical things, but then you doubled down that it is mechanical. And now I ask you, well,
it's mechanical now. You said take all those away.
How can I get in the way? What
are you left with?
How can I get in the way?
How
can I actually get away with a spiritual aspect of your relationship with God? How could I physically get in the way of that?
You can't get in the way.
Then that's a contradiction. You just said you just said I
could.
With
my physical ability, you keep switching which ones we're talking about, and I've been trying to keep up.
You're switching. You keep teetering.
If I'm going to switch, I would turn to jurisdiction, and we'd start going down to levels of jurisdiction.
No, you keep switching.
This is on you.
No, you keep switching the definition of sovereignty to be a metaphysical, spiritual thing, but it's also a practical. If it's not a practical, if it's not
both.
Dude, if it's not
it's metaphysical,
okay, cool,
and it's practical.
Cool. So again, we're back to we're just gonna loop then, because if you said it's practical, right? Isn't it possible that someone could take on your approach to paying the fines and not be participating in God?
No, if you did it my way, you're participating.
That's hilarious. Your sacrament is literally a way of paying for things. You're disgusting, dude.
It's not a sacrament.
You're disgusting.
It's not a sacrament.
The way in which you participate with God is paying fines in a specific kind of way.
It's not. You're the one who.
How old are you? How old are you?
Things.
If you're over 40, dude, I don't even know what to tell you, man.
Jimbob, I was too young to remember my own birth. The only thing I would tell you about it would be hearsay.
However,
that's my ability. I'm approximately.
I want to make sure 35. An atheist who pays bills your way is participating in God that he rejects.
An atheist that, well, in order to pay bills my way, you would have to submit to the authority of the one true Catholic Holy Church.
What do you mean? What if no, you can't.
Was the first part. No, I had to break the 12 presumptions, and you have to submit yourself to God in order to do this. An atheist by default
hold on a second.
Cannot do
hold on a second. How does the Catholic Church verify that you're submitting spiritually to God and not just doing a loophole workaround to fight usury?
I'm not an apologist.
No. You are an apologist. You are an apologist. You said that hold on. You said I can't, right? I can't go through your method of getting your little special certificate unless I submit to God at a spiritual level. Is that the case, or could I actually mechanically go through the same process without believing anything?
When you go through the process, you're going to have to declare.
Can I lie?
That's one of the... Can you lie? Of course you could lie.
Okay, cool. So that defeats your whole argument. Any last words before I got to run because someone has to be.
Yes. Last words. Perfect. Thank you. First off, I want to thank you, Jimbob. I appreciate you bringing this to the forefront of attention. This subject matter gets put down low. A lot, and so I appreciate this conversation. Thank you for your time. I appreciate your insults, and I will do my best to take that in after this, watch the video again, and see where we can come into agreements. I hope that we can have an ongoing conversation. I hope I didn't frustrate you too much with this.
No,
I would really next time like to talk about jurisdiction and the actual paperwork, and it may not be best for you to talk about these things. Maybe there's somebody else. But I would like to schedule some sort of meeting with somebody, if you're still interested in this topics, where we can go through the paperwork, and maybe if we go through the paperwork step by step, it would help enlighten.
Yeah, maybe. I think you should definitely schedule something and meet with someone, but I would call that an Orthodox priest and get out of this legalist system that you're in, because it's a shit show. But I appreciate you coming on. I got to actually run. Thank you, everyone in the Discord who hung out here.